Hi everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. I've had this idea for a while of creating videos where I'm talking about like 10 things everyone should know about different conditions that I have, and I am finally starting on this series. I feel like I have a lot of medical conditions that are very misunderstood that I wanted to talk about and raise awareness for, and I was also thinking like, what are some ways that I can give advice for people struggling with these conditions, or for if you're like a loved one of someone with a condition, advice for those people as well. So there will be more videos like this one in the future, but I wanted to start off with depression because depression is something that I feel very passionately about, and I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about depression out there. I also feel like there's a lot of stigma around treating depression, and I wanted to sort of talk about it, normalize depression, and raise awareness for how depression actually looks. Because this video is about depression, I will be talking about triggering subjects. Specifically, I may mention suicide, suicidal ideation, and self-harm. I will of course also be talking about depression. If those are triggers for you, then I recommend not watching this video. Also a little bit about my depression and my experience with it. I was diagnosed with depression when I was, I believe, 13 or 14. It was when I was in middle school, and I have been in treatment ever since. I have tried several different types of therapy, and I am on antidepressants. I also have a lot of family members who have depression, so I have a lot of experience with how depression looks different in each individual person. The first thing I wrote on this list is most people will experience depression at some point in their lives, but for some people depression becomes a lifelong mental illness that needs treatment. I feel like sometimes people say they're depressed and view it as just like a fleeting passing emotion, which can be true for a lot of people. If you have a family member who passes away, you probably will be depressed after, and you will be grieving, and part of that grieving will be depression. Depression is a stronger emotion than sadness, and it's something that most people will experience at some point or another in your life. The one given that we all have in life is that we all will experience hardships and really hard things, whether it be people passing away, whether it be our own struggles with health issues, whether it be a traumatic event. So we're all pretty much will experience depression at some point in our lives. The difference is that for some people, they can't pull themselves out of that depression, and it becomes a clinical diagnosis. So I have been clinically diagnosed with depression. I've also noticed from my experience, a lot of people think that depression will be something small and fleeting that they can treat on their own, but it ends up being more of a lifelong chronic condition that needs treatment. So it's very important to distinguish. You will experience depression in your life, but there's also a level that needs treatment and won't fully go away, at least for several months, if not years, if not the rest of your life. The second point that I wrote in here is there are multiple methods to treat depression, and none of them should be stigmatized, even though many of them are. So therapy is a big one. I know if you look online ways to treat depression, it mentioned lifestyle changes. Lifestyle changes can help with your depression. However, I feel like if you are trying to make lifestyle changes, but you aren't sure what you need to change in order to get your depression under control, the therapy will help you figure out what lifestyle changes you need to make. Therapy is really important. There's a lot of different types of therapy. The one that I'm currently engaged in is a combination of acceptance and commitment therapy, as well as CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and just standard talk therapy. I've also tried RODBT, and I've also tried DBT, standard DBT, and standard DBT is dialectical behavioral therapy. And there is other types as well. So there's a lot of different types of therapy that are out there and available. There's also a lot of different types of like levels of therapy and treatment that you're getting. For some people, a weekly therapy session is enough. For other people, they need something a bit more intensive. For example, DBT, when I did DBT, had 2 sessions per week. But for some people, they only need 1 session a week. There is also intensive outpatient where you're in a facility for most of the day or at least half the day. There's also inpatient programs where you're spending the night and you're there pretty much all the time. So there's a lot of different ways that therapy can look. Medication is a big one that gets super stigmatized that I think we need to stop stigmatizing it. Yes, there can be side effects to meds, but for people with depression, if therapy is not effective, you oftentimes will need medication to help with your depression. The way that it was always described to me is you are stuck in a hole with your depression. You're stuck in this hole and you can't get out of this hole. For some people, they're able to climb up the side of that hole and get themselves out with just therapy. For other people, they need that tool, that ladder to slide on down and help them get out of this depression hole. So for some people, they need a ladder, other people don't. If you need a ladder, view it like the medication. It's just another tool to help you. I have been on antidepressants ever since I was a teen, and I don't think they should be stigmatized. A lot of people in my life are on antidepressants, and it's what helps keeps us stabilized. I also think though, if you're starting out with medications, I always recommend having therapy on there as well. Therapy and medications work side by side. From my experience, it's not as effective to just work on medications. You also need therapy to go along with it. I also wanted to mention that there is TMS as well. TMS is one that I've considered but haven't done. It's where you're using magnets on your head to try and help readjust your brain chemistry a little bit. There's also some ideas and research out there about using mushrooms and marijuana for medical purposes. I haven't dabbled in that at all, so I am completely unfamiliar with that, but if you go to a medical professional for it, they can help guide you with it. It's harder to know how to control your dosage and take care of yourself if you're doing it on your own without the help of a medical professional. If you do it recreationally, like, that's one thing, but if you're trying to like get it to help with your depression, then going to a doctor is what I'd highly recommend. The third point I want to mention is that not all depressed people show visible signs, and not all depressed people will tell you they're depressed. Sometimes the most telling signs is subtle signs to look out for. I am someone who picks up really easily what other people are feeling with their emotions. So oftentimes I can find when people in my life are struggling with depression before they're willing to admit it to me. And I say it like that because I'm saying that there's subtle signs that give me hints at what's going on. I'm not going to pressure my friends to talk about it if they don't want to talk about it, but subtle signs can be really telling. If you're seeing drastic changes in behavior, if you're seeing someone talking about death a lot more, if you're seeing someone pulling away from all of their friends, if they're pulling away from just one friend, it could be that that friend legitimately did something that upset the other person, but if they're pulling away from all their friends, becoming isolated, there's a chance that they're struggling from depression. It's things like that that I pick up on really easily. I also find that when people get to the extreme point that they're extremely suicidal and actually considering doing it, I'm not talking just suicidal with no plan, I'm talking with a plan, I find that those people will often go silent. I know from my past history, when I have been the most suicidal, I shut down and went silent. When I talked about being suicidal, I was suicidal, I was considering it, but I was less at a risk of actually doing it because I was still reaching out to people. When I had plans and was very close to enacting them, the final thing I always did was went silent, and my friends would not hear from me. And depression also is a mental illness, so what I'm saying with not visible signs as well is because it's all in the head, you can't see visible signs all the time. For example, if someone breaks a bone, you see that their bone is broken. But when someone's struggling with something in their brain, you don't often see it, and you have to pay attention to signs if you're looking out for your friends and concerned about if they're struggling with something like that. The fourth point I have is an extremely important point, and it is not your responsibility to fix anyone else's depression. The choices they make because of their depression is not your fault. This is something big that I struggle with myself, but I feel is also important to emphasize for other people. Ultimately, what a depressed person ends up doing is their own decision. You can try and offer support, you can try and help connect them to resources, but they will make the decision that they make, and it is not your fault. The only time it would be your fault is if you're like relentlessly harassing this person or encouraging them to actually follow through with the actions. It also is hard because sometimes people weaponize their depression to keep you around. I've had this happen to me before. So for example, you're in a fight or you're pulling away from someone or you're about to end a relationship or a friendship, and they say, I'm gonna go kill myself now. I'm going to go harm myself now. And that can be used as a way to weaponize depression and pull you in. At that point, you need to pull away so that you protect yourself and don't feel like you're obligated to do things for this person because of their mental health. But it's hard because I understand how you feel like you have a responsibility to be there for them because they open up to you about it, but at the same time it can be weaponized against you. So it's a complicated thing. You should try and be there for your friends as much as you can, but you also have to understand that it's not your responsibility to fix your friend's depression, and it's not your fault if they do anything. And also, you need to prioritize your own well-being, and if you can't be there for a friend with depression, you can't be there for them. And it will suck for the person with depression if you can't be there for them, but your well-being should always come first. The fifth one I have on this list is that not all people who want to die are actively suicidal. This is something that I constantly have to emphasize with lots of people. There is a difference between wanting to die and having no interest in life and not caring if you die versus actively wanting to take your own life. So the key thing to know if someone's suicidal needs like a crisis number called on them, or if they just are depressed and don't have any interest in life, is look at the word choice that they're doing. Are they saying that they have a plan? Are they saying that they have specific actions? Have you seen them harm themselves or seen signs that they're harming themselves? Self-harm can happen for a variety of reasons, but sometimes it can be used as a way to test out if they can handle the pain before they do it. So it's very important to distinguish the difference. For example, to bring in my own experiences, the times where I've wanted to die, but I'm not suicidal, I'm not at risk of harming myself. But if I say that I'm suicidal, or if I am feeling suicidal thoughts, then I am at risk of harming myself. So it's a very clear distinction. I've heard people say that one is being passively suicidal and one's not passively suicidal, but there is a key difference between the two and the level of support that would be needed. If someone is actively suicidal, 911 needs to be called, help needs to be brought to them. But if someone just wants to die, it is a bit different and they aren't as high of a risk, but they still should be encouraged to go in and get support and therapy. The sixth point I want to mention is that there are helplines available to help people. Some are texting helplines, for example, the crisis text line. Some you call, for example, the suicide helpline. There are also some that are LGBTQ+ specific, for example, the Trevor Project. But I want to be 100% clear, these aren't permanent fixes. They're temporary. They're there in the short term to help you through a very intense episode, and they will try and help you get support through therapy and long-term support. So they can help you in the moment when you're at a crisis, but they can't be there long-term, and they will try and help you get stuff long-term. I have used crisis lines before, and they can help when you're in the middle of a crisis to just calm you down enough until you can go and get additional help. The seventh point I wanted to mention is that depression can be genetic. I have tons of family members with depression. It runs in my family. It was a given that I get it. If I have kids, there is a high probability they will have depression. It's just the way that it is. A lot of mental illnesses have genetic components to it. The eighth point I want to make is that trauma can cause or trigger depression. For me, I had a family history of depression, so it was bound that I would get depression probably eventually. However, it was a specific event that triggered my depression. If you go through something traumatic, you can get depression. The important thing that I feel to mention too is that no matter why your depression happens, the treatments will still be the same. You will still need therapy and stuff like that, and you will still need help no matter what caused it, but there is different things that can cause it in different people. The ninth thing I want to mention is that depression can look different in everyone, and I mentioned this earlier, but I want to go a little bit more into specifics about it. For some people, it's just a numbness. You don't feel anything, you're just going through the motions of life. For other people, it's spiraling. I struggle with spiraling a lot. That is a huge way it presents in myself. Spiraling for me looks like the thoughts are racing through my mind, things are looping, memories are looping in my mind, and I get physical symptoms with it. I start hyperventilating, my heart rate gets really high, but it's just this like looping on different ideas, on different thought processes, or on different memories that cause the spirals. For other people too, depression can look like just such intense sadness that they can't function, they can't work, they can't leave the house, they can't socialize. So depression looks different for everyone. No two people have the same presentation of depression. It shows up very differently in different people, but all depression is real. The final point I wanted to make is that depressed people need people in their life who can provide support. Simple actions will go a long way into saving a depressed person's life. When I think of the people who have helped so that I'm still here today, sometimes it is something very simple. Something as simple as, "You look a little off, are you doing okay?" From a complete stranger that made me feel like, oh, people care. The big important moments of like people coming into my life to help me with my depression, of course, helped a ton, but the little actions also go a long way as well. If you suspect that someone may be struggling with depression, you may just want to reach out and just go, "Hey, how you doing?" Or maybe ask them out to go get a cup of coffee or something just to get them out of the house. When I say simple actions can go a long way too, view it as sort of like a life mindset if you can. Try and just treat everyone kindly and with respect, because you don't know what other people are going through. As I said earlier, depressed people won't always show signs. You won't know who's going through it and when they're going through it. So what I try and do is I try to be kind to everyone that I meet, because I know that simple kindness can help people during their darkest time. And I feel like that's a mindset we all need to take in the world. So anyways, those are 10 things that I felt that everyone should know about depression. If anyone has any questions about depression, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. I have been dealing with depression for over 10 years and I've been in treatment for it for over 10 years. I'm at a point right now where I'm fairly stable. So when I was talking about everything in this video about past history of being suicidal and stuff, I am stable right now, to be 100% clear, but being stable means that I now have the capability to talk about this in more detail, and I have the capability to answer questions about it. I want to make sure that we're destigmatizing depression and that we're destigmatizing treatment for depression, And if there's anything that I can do to answer any questions or anything like that, feel free to let me know. If you would rather the question not be public, you can always send me a message over on Instagram. I hope all of you are having a great month. I hope this video was informative if you wanted to know more about depression. I have a few other videos I want to make in this series, for example, about my anxiety, OCD, and even some of my physical health issues like POTS and endometriosis. I will also link resources down in the description below for different helplines if you need those helplines or if you need to find the resources to send to someone that you know who is in crisis. And I think that's it for today's video, so until next time everyone, goodbye!